Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
And now, live from St. Jerome Parish in Fancy Farm, Kentucky, and from our studios in Louisville, this is your front row seat to one of the most anticipated political traditions in the Commonwealth. It's the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally, presented by Kentucky's Voice.
You're a political junkie. This is a big day for you, okay? And we have them in Kentucky, and some of them are at Fancy Farm, and many of them are watching this show today as we cover the event live from Western Kentucky. It's a political picnic, guys. It's a picnic. Yep. It's got a lot of pork there, both literal and political. Right. And some of it's going to get thrown, some of it's going to get fried. When the speakers go at Fancy Farm, you have to contend with a very interactive, we'll say that in the day of social media. This is a very interactive experience. Yeah. But glad to have you with us, and we're going to have more discussion here with my co-host here, Tom Fallbush and Bob Scott. But we want to tell you, Kentucky's Voice, you can hear this every day, 11 to noon, right here. Great guest, great commentary and analysis, news and analysis and opinion from a conservative, common sense viewpoint. And we want to hear from you today on our Kentucky's Voice text line, 502-571-0970. Let us know what you think about the Senate race. Who are you going to vote for? Who are you supporting? Are you waiting to hear Nate Morris today? Are you waiting to hear what Senator McConnell has to say? What do you think about what the Republicans have done in this state over the last decade or so in terms of becoming the dominant party? This off our text line, guys. We'll start our discussion with this. Wait until the midterm when all these Republicans lose their jobs, which will be better for the whole country. We were talking, Tom Fallbush, about...
Wonder what party he supports.
We were talking in an earlier segment with Dr. Lance Pearson about the midterms and about how in Kentucky now, the real fights in much of our state is in the Republican primary.
That's exactly right. Yeah, now's the time. If you're a Republican, if you're a conservative in the state, you need to be paying attention right now because we've got to police ourselves, right? And so this moment of the Republican Party trying to figure out who it is, what it is it a MAGA party? Is it the Bush party, Reagan party, whatever? We've got to decide that right now. And so that's why today is so critical. The Fancy Farm is Kentucky's town hall, but it's in a Kentucky flair, Kentucky style, and it's very engaging. So this is our town hall to figure out who's going to take McConnell's seat, one of the most powerful senators the state has ever seen,
yes,
and probably one of the most powerful senators this country's ever seen. So who's going to take his seat? And he's here today to defend his legacy. But there's several folks that are positioning themselves as the anti-McConnell. Yeah. So you have to work. This moment is where we police ourselves and figure out what we're going to be as a party.
Well, really one in particular, and that's Nate Morris.
That's right.
And there's no doubt, there's a reason why McConnell showed up today, guys.
That's right.
He's there, one, to defend his legacy, but also there to frame or attempt to frame Nate Morris in a certain position.
That's right.
And
those two things go together, right?
Defending
his legacy,
absolutely,
and some of the things Morris has thrown out there. And in all fairness, Mitch McConnell has been a staple at Fancy Farm many years. He's been there. He's not been the guy to avoid it, and I give him credit for not avoiding. And he's been willing to go and take the heat. Yeah. And by the way, a lot of events surround Fancy Farm. The GOP has lots of local events where they bring in, and Senator McConnell was there yesterday speaking to several different groups, and there's an early morning breakfast as well. So he's down there. You're right, and that's what he's doing. He's defending his legacy, and he's pushing back against claims by any means.
But you got to be careful with that, because if he defends his legacy and he starts positioning himself as a supporter of one of these candidates, that could be the kiss of death for that candidate, right? Because there's a lot of anti-McConnell sentiment right now. So suddenly he's maybe Barr or Cameron is my guy. Suddenly Morris is going to shoot through the polls.
From an outsider looking in, it appears to be we know McConnell is. We were talking about how the party is changing and morphing, and it has. And I'm
growing.
It's growing, yes. And I, for one, still believe we can be at that big tent party.
Yes.
We absolutely can be.
Yeah.
I'll say it, I'm a Republican, but it's going to have to morph into something that is, in my opinion, more along the lines of MAGA or populist,
conservative populism.
The traditional. I'm just going to say the traditional Republican Party as we knew it is DEAD.
Yes, exactly.
On
right.
arrival.
That's right.
Well,
Exactly
it's
right.
really happening in both parties. Really.
Well, that's
the
true
Democrats
too.
are
That's a good
Yeah,
observation.
They're in their
They're having
populist
the same.
mode too. I mean,
And
Bernie Sanders
that's
is
right.
basically a left-wing populist.
That's right.
But he just communist too. So it's-
Well, I mean, and I would say if you have any doubt about communism, to our good friend there in New York who's running as a communist, I'm sorry, a socialist, I'm sorry.
right.
Just look at the dustbin of history and all the failed attempts at creating equal societies through government force at the end of a gun with the threat of those kind of threats. Anyhow, that's off topic, but that's for free. Hey, we're glad to have you with us today here. Let's get back here. Kentucky's Voice. You can see us across all the platforms on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram today. We're everywhere, Bob Scott.
It's exciting.
How does it feel to be everywhere?
Hey,
at once?
I don't know about that, but it feels great to be here. This gets my juices flowing. We are right now. The next year, I said it earlier, is going to be absolutely critical. Really, the next 6 months, because whoever wins the Republican primary is going to, I believe, is certainly from the Senate standpoint, is going to be our next
Now,
senator.
let me bring in the possibility, which we talked about in another segment, Tom, I think, with Dr. Pearson, is the possibility of some other candidates jumping in here. We talked about this earlier, too. But, we still haven't maybe heard all the candidates either. They're going to be here. And the Scott Jennings, now that's a really interesting, when you start talking about McConnell.
Outsider play.
Defending, but a lot of people would look at Scott Jennings and say
As
he's not
an
really an
insider.
outsider.
That's true. That's right.
But if he gets Trump's endorsement, seems to be the thing that balances out people's concerns about
Well,
this.
if he did get Trump's endorsement, I think it would be confusing for folks in the MAGA world, because it seems like with Donald Trump Jr. and Charlie Kirk backing Morris as strongly as they have, it would look like there's sort of dissension in the ranks.
I think that's
in
a
the
great
Republican.
point.
So I think Trump's probably locked into supporting Morris just because of his son and Kirk, and so those are the two most powerful surrogates he has.
And I just
Let me ask you this, Tom. We talked about this in the last segment, but this is a big day for Nate Morris in particular.
Yeah, it sure is.
This,
It sure is.
and he's, as we said, he's going to have to define himself before Daniel Cameron and Andy Barr do much more. They've already out there.
I was just showing you guys in the break here. I'm sure many of you are Republicans are getting texts like this. These are coming from somebody, probably the Cameron campaign, some of the Barr campaign, attacking Morris, and so I get more anti-Morris literature thrown at me, or messages at me.
And why
than
is that?
anything
Why
anything.
is it coming from both?
That's right.
Of those campaigns. That's
Well,
the question we have to ask.
And I
see
think
him
from
as a
the
front
beginning,
runner.
I know from the beginning, we had Nate Morris. I had him on the Kentucky's Voice show early on in this before he announced. But, and he had run an op-ed here really, really hammering McConnell, really hard. But I think we've talked about this is going to be what happens, that the establishment vote, it maybe he's counting on this is going to be split, and he's going to find a pathway through that. That could happen. 502-571-0970. We want to hear from you. Who do you support in this race? Have you made up your mind? If you haven't, what is it that you need to hear? What do you need to see happen? What do you need Nate Morris? I will give Nate Morris so far the award for the best prop at Fancy Farm, which matters there. It really does.
But Jim,
with the garbage can lids.
Well,
we're
and
going to see how
tell you
that
what,
plays.
I'm glad you brought that up because it doesn't remind you of what McConnell did back in '84 when he ran with
the Hound
against D.
dog.
Huddleston.
Yeah, the Hound,
and he
right.
had the Hound out there.
That's right.
You know, saying,
where's D.
D.
Huddleston? That's right.
You know,
Yeah,
has that same kind of feel to it.
Can I answer your question earlier? What do we need to hear from Nate Morris? We need to hear him answer these attacks because these attacks do have me a bit concerned as well. If he really is a DEI CEO, right? If he really is somewhat woke in his past for whatever reason, or maybe dabbled in some of those areas, or what the not the CFR, but whatever. What's the global group that whatever? He's part of that global group in Davos. Those are concerns for me as well. I'm not sold on Morris either. You know, even though Trump and all these folks are pushing him.
So each one
he
of
needs
these
to sell himself to me and answer these questions.
Each one of these candidates, we could say that about.
Yeah.
Each one of these candidates.
That's right.
There's going to be things you like, things you don't like.
Yeah.
What it's going to come down to, I think, is going to be, or let me ask you, do you think it will be, there will be things in there that you don't like, but there's going to be other things you like more that weigh. And I think a lot of people are going to be in this weighing mode.
That's right.
Don't you, Bob Scott?
No, I agree 100%. And there's two that I really like, one that I don't like, you know, as far as the three are concerned. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Very good. Good discussion. We're going to go live now back to Fancy Farm. We're going to hear, and this is Ashley Watts, who is the head of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce and today's MC at the event. Let's go live to Fancy Farm.
I'm sure Governor Beshear would have loved to have been here, but it was hard to squeeze this event in between going to Iowa and his Vogue cover shoot. Which is too bad, because I have an exciting announcement. At the Chamber, we hand out legislative MVP awards to members of the General Assembly, where they go to bat for Kentucky businesses. They get a beautifully engraved Louisville Slugger bat. But today, I'd like to introduce a brand new award for Governor Andy Beshear, the Gold Glove Award, for catching all the easy wins lobbed over by the Kentucky General Assembly the last 6 years. Congratulations, Governor Beshear. I'm happy to see that some of our constitutional officers joined us today. It is great to see our Attorney General here today. I thought Senator McConnell had just brought a Secret Service detail with him, but it turns out that intense man over there is just Russell Coleman. Mark Metcalf is here. He's our state treasurer. Okay. We're still not exactly sure what the state treasurer does, but we're glad he's doing it. Welcome, Mark. And I know I saw our Agriculture Commissioner, Jonathan Shelton.
You're watching the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally presented by Kentucky's Voice. Welcome back to the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally, broadcasting live from St. Jerome Parish in Fancy Farm, Kentucky, and from our studios in Louisville. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice. Real people, real moments, real coverage continues now.
It's no wonder everybody's so excited this time around. For 4 years, it was like the Biden administration was waging war on family farm itself. Democrats' runaway inflation sent the price of pork through the roof. The Biden DOJ went undercover to intimidate Catholics. And crazy climate change rules made a tough job tougher for all of the Graves County farmers. But St. Jerome's outlasted Democrats' control of Washington, and I'll outlast a church-closing governor. This year, there's plenty of reasons to count your lucky stars that America voted like Kentucky did last year and brought back President Trump and a Republican Congress. So think about it. You fired the Democrats who created the worst border crisis in history, who thought we'd just get used to record high illegal crossings and unchecked fentanyl. You hired Republicans who actually believe in the rule of law. And what happened? Border crossings are at an all-time low. You told the Democrats who went on a reckless taxing and spending spree to get lost, and you hired Republicans to deliver one big, beautiful bill, which made the tax cuts permanent for Americans and small businesses. You said enough with Joe Biden's weakness on the world stage. Enough with embarrassments like his retreat from Afghanistan. Enough with second-guessing allies like Israel. And you hired Republicans to stand up to our enemies, stand with our friends. You hired a president to restore peace through strength. Joe Biden was afraid of Vladimir Putin. He let an old KGB thug literally get in his head. But President Trump knows who the bad guys are. Russia, North Korea, China, and Iran. Joe Biden was afraid of Iran when their terrorists attacked our troops and our allies. He simply put up with it. But President Trump got no time for that. He turned Iran's nuclear program into a pile of rocks. I saw the president last week at the White House. We talked about his decision to bomb Iran and to keep helping Ukraine fight Putin. I told him he made the right call. This is how you restore peace through strength. America is stronger and safer with Republicans in charge in Washington. Republicans like your great Congressman, Jamie Comer. If you think America deserves answers and accountability for Joe Biden's nonsense, I've got good news. Chairman Comer and the Oversight Committee are getting to the bottom of it all. That's right. You didn't get just elect a president tough enough to fight a Democratic Congress. You elected a Republican Congress to actually work with it. Over the years, I've led Republican majorities and delivered all kinds of wins for Kentucky and for our country, investing in Fort Campbell, keeping Paducah at the center of our national security, helping Mayfield bounce back from those deadly tornadoes, fighting back against the war on coal, and helping President Trump set records and change the Supreme Court for a generation. But none of it is possible without Republicans at the wheel. That's why my top goal last year was to make sure our president had a Republican Senate from day one. Well, boy, did we get it done. And Republicans will do it again and again and again. Thank you.
And there it is, Mitch McConnell's last speech at Fancy Farm. And the chanting you were hearing during that was a group of leftist, Democrat, whatever you want to call them, chanting "Cease fire now," making protests regarding the Israel-Hamas Gaza conflict. That's right. A bunch of leftists drove over here. The few of them that are here, they drove here and they decided to shout down Mitch McConnell, not over some policy to do with what's happening back home that maybe you could take some issue with, and I could understand. Instead, they decided to devote the entire time to shouting him down over foreign conflicts. But to their point, Mitch McConnell did spend much of the time defending.
Daniel is the CEO of the 1792 Exchange and previously served as Kentucky's 51st Attorney General. Welcome, Daniel Cameron.
Well, thank you, Ashley, and hello, Fancy Farm. I am always proud to spend time with so many hard-working West Kentucky patriots. Ashley, I want to thank you and the Chamber for making sure KAT is here. Who could have known that in a span of just a few short years, KAT would go from covering bailouts to actually getting one? Look, KAT showing up here is more than can be said for the Democrats. There aren't even enough of them to run Joe Biden's auto pen. But look, I understand why they aren't here. They're out searching for a national identity, which is going to be hard to find when they're afraid of being misgendered. You know, it was an honor to stand on this stage last year as President Trump's surrogate to Fancy Farm. This year, I am proud to be here as a candidate for the United States Senate. I'm running to ensure that Graves County and the rest of our Commonwealth has a voice in Washington, a voice that respects the men, women, and children of all 120 counties, a voice that will stand up for your constitutional rights, and a voice that will support President Trump's America First agenda. President Trump's second term has been a victory for common sense and a loss for auto pens and incompetence. From removing violent illegals to ensuring we're not being taken advantage of in trade deals, this president is working for the American people. And now he needs reinforcements in the Senate. In this primary, the people of Kentucky will have to decide between talk and action. For instance, Andy Barr wants you to think he's America First, but it's hard to believe him when he's voted with Nancy Pelosi 1,200 times. And Nate Morris wants you to think he's tough, but when he was asked about his donation in the primary to Nikki Haley over Donald Trump, rather than own up to it, his first thought was to throw his wife under the bus. He said, and I quote, "I got stuck with the bill for a dinner my wife attended." Nate, that's not tough. That's a night in the doghouse. Nate will do anything and say anything to run away from his past. He talks tough about deporting illegals, but the only thing he's ever sent across the border has been his company. You can't stand up for American workers when the only experience you've had with them is firing them. You can't claim to be MAGA when you build a company on...
You're watching the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally presented by Kentucky's Voice. We'll return with more live coverage right after this. Welcome back to the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally, broadcasting live from St. Jerome Parish in Fancy Farm, Kentucky, and from our studios in Louisville. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice. Real people, real moments, real coverage continues now.
Across the border has been his company. You can't stand up for American workers when the only experience you've had with them is firing them. You can't claim to be MAGA when you build a company on ESG subsidies and DEI initiatives. And you can't claim to be opposed to woke ideology when you spent 2020 embracing the same protesters that were on my front lawn. Now, some would say his campaign reminds him of a fart. It stinks, it's unproductive, and it's a sign that the emitter is full of crap. Talk is cheap. We have to be judged by our actions, and I'm happy to put my record up against these two gentlemen any day. As your Attorney General, I stood up to the Biden administration when they tried to destroy our coal industry. I stood up to Andy Beshear when he tried to shut down our churches. I stood up for our kids when he tried to protect them from radical gender ideology. And I stood up to the mob when they tried to bully me into making a decision that was contrary to the laws of our state. And as I think about this race, I think about our boys. Mackenzie and I want them to grow up in a colorblind society, one based on merit and opportunity, not division and handouts. We don't need America built on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need America built on merit, excellence, and intelligence. We want our boys to grow up in a Kentucky that is free from fentanyl. Nothing made me prouder as AG than helping bring in nearly $900 million to the state to fight the drug epidemic. That's why I want to work with President Trump to finish the wall and to secure our southern border. We want our boys to grow up in a Kentucky that honors and supports our law enforcement community. That's why I'm proud to have the endorsements of over 50 law enforcement officials, because they know I will always back the blue. And we want our boys to grow up in a Kentucky that preserves our rich heritage in coal and natural gas. That's why I'll be a relentless voice for energy independence. Finally, let me address the 800-pound elephant in the room. As I travel the state, I'm often asked, who will help you make decisions when you're a senator? Let me say this as clearly as I can. This seat doesn't belong to any politician. It belongs to you, the people of Kentucky. As I told Joe Biden when I spoke on behalf of President Trump at the 2020 RNC convention, my mind is my own. I'll be a senator focused on the future, not the past, focused on supporting President Trump's America First agenda and delivering for this Commonwealth, and focused on lifting people up rather than tearing them down. I will be guided by you, the people. May God bless you and God bless the Commonwealth. Thank you.
And there is Cameron's Fancy Farm speech. A lot easier than when he was dealing with the Breonna Taylor chants. Andy Barr is up next.
Andy Barr currently represents Kentucky's 6th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives. Welcome, Congressman Barr.
Hello, Fancy Farm! I'm Andy Barr, and I'm running for Senate to continue my work with President Trump to make America great again. I'm a proud husband, busy father of Eleanor, Mary Clay, and Hale, an 8th-generation Kentuckian, grandson of 2 World War II veterans, and an America First fighter who has never wavered in the fight for limited government, free enterprise, and a strong national defense. After defending small businesses in the private sector, I flipped a seat in Congress, fought Obama's war on coal, and opposed big government wherever I found it. I led the fight in court during Trump's first term, defending his authority to build the wall. I authored major parts of bills that President Trump signed into law to roll back destructive regulations on the economy. The very first veto of Biden's failed presidency was his veto of my legislation, a bill that took on the woke environmentalists and protected Americans' retirement from radical ESG mandates. I serve proudly as chairman of President Trump's 2024 primary election in Kentucky, and I'm working arm in arm with him right now to get his America First agenda passed in the House. Now, some politicians like to say I'm a Trump guy. They talk about supporting the president, but I'm the only candidate in this race who's actually doing it day in and day out in Congress. My opponents like to talk about the one big beautiful bill. I wrote it and helped to pass it. Think about it. In less than 8 months, President Trump and I have worked together to close the border, deport illegal aliens, obliterate Iran's nuclear program, restore peace through strength, make permanent Trump's tax cuts, eliminate taxes on tips and overtime, and revive American energy dominance through Kentucky coal. In the United States Senate, I'll continue to be the president's #1 ally. Now, I know our governor would hate to hear that. Too bad Andy Beshear couldn't be here today. I guess he couldn't find the time between Vogue magazine photo shoots and measuring Oval Office drapes. Of course, the liberal media is fawning all over him, but Americans will soon learn what we Kentuckians already know. He's as liberal as he is boring. You know, I'd say anyone could beat this guy, but I wouldn't want to offend Daniel Cameron. Good to see you, Daniel. I think we're going to keep the tradition alive of Andy's beating Daniels. As Kentuckians, we're all profoundly grateful to people who take it upon themselves to right the wrongs of woke liberals, like the guy who had to reverse radical environmental commitments, eliminate racial DEI policies, and correct a bunch of bad decisions that led to financial ruin. No, I'm not just talking about President Trump cleaning up Joe Biden's mess. I'm talking about the guy who had to follow Nate Morris as CEO after he ran his green fantasy Rubicon into the ground and was pushed out of his own company. You know, Nate calls himself the trash man, but dumpster fire is more like it. We all know President Trump is on a winning streak and the left is losing big. Recently, the only people who have lost more than congressional Democrats, illegal immigrants, and the tyrants in Iran are Rubicon investors. Of course, we've all heard Nate profess his newfound loyalty to President Trump. He said the same about his mentor, Mitch McConnell, and we see how that worked out. President Trump better watch his back. You know, Nate Morris was so moved by President Trump, he donated thousands of dollars to Nikki Haley. Nate was so incensed when Kamala's senior political advisor said Trump must be destroyed thoroughly that Nate put him on his board. Nate was so opposed to Black Lives Matter, he praised the actions of the rioters and called for all of us to support them. Nate hated DEI so much that, listen to this, he sent his employees to bias training classes to lose their so-called white privilege. You know, I'm sensing a pattern with this guy. Out here in West Kentucky, we have a name for someone who opposed President Trump, supported BLM, and pushed DEI. A Democrat. But we ought to let up a little. It's been a tough couple of years for Nate. His company collapsed. Nikki Haley lost the primary. Brooks Brothers stopped making his favorite COVID mask. And now Trump is phasing out the penny. How in the world is anyone going to be able to buy Rubicon stock? All kidding aside, thank you to St. Jerome's Church for hosting this incredible event and for providing us an opportunity to make our pitch and have a little fun. Know in me, West Kentucky will always have a friend, from supporting our brave men and women at Fort Campbell, cheering on Murray State in the College World Series, defending our coal miners in Union and Hopkins counties, to supporting nuclear-powered AI data centers in Paducah. West Kentucky will have no better friend this side of Jamie Comer when it comes to supporting West Kentucky in the United States Senate. The Purchase region epitomizes so much of what makes Kentucky special: community, faith, and great food. It's an honor to be with you today. God bless you all. God bless you.
Thank you, Congressman Barr. We are now going to have Nate Morris join us. Nate is the founder of Rubicon, a waste and recycling company operating in all 50 states and 20 countries. He is also the founder and chairman of Morris Industries and the chairman of Republic Financial. Welcome, Nate.
All right. I am so glad to see that Mitch McConnell bothered to show up today. But you know, I'm really confused. I thought this was Fancy Farm. I didn't realize this was Bring Your Boys to Work Day. It's great to be with you all. My name is Nate Morris, and I'm a trash man. You know, a lot of people thought I wouldn't show up today, but I would never miss an opportunity to be right here in West Kentucky. I love this Commonwealth. My family's been here for 9 generations. We descended from Morgan County. And the 10th generation, my little man, JR, was born just a couple weeks ago. And just so I want to thank the folks here at St. Jerome's for such a tremendous Kentucky tradition. When I launched my campaign for the United States Senate, I led with 3 things that I want everyone to remember me by. Number 1, I'm an America First conservative who supports Donald Trump 100% of the time. I'm an entrepreneur who built a trash company right here in Kentucky and took it public on the New York Stock Exchange. And number 3, I'm going to trash Mitch McConnell's legacy. It's funny, you know, the third one is pissing off a lot of people, but I have a serious question. Who here can honestly tell me that it's a good thing to have a senior citizen who freezes on national television during his press conferences as our U.S. Senator? It seems to me, maybe, just maybe, Mitch's time to leave the Senate was a long time ago. I mean, for goodness sakes, a lot of us here at this picnic talked a lot of smack about Joe Biden and how old he was and how out
Welcome back to the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally, broadcasting live from St. Jerome Parish in Fancy Farm, Kentucky, and from our studios in Louisville. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice. Real people, real moments, real coverage continues now.
Leave the Senate was a long time ago. I mean, for goodness sakes, a lot of us here at this picnic talked a lot of smack about Joe Biden and how old he was and how out of touch he was with the American people. So why is it that you all get so defensive when I talk about a man who's older than Biden, just as mentally compromised, and holds the same positions on Biden on amnesty, Ukraine funding, and his hatred for Trump? Here's another one that gets me. Take immigration, for example. I said we ought to deport all the 20 million illegal immigrants Joe Biden let invade our country. And Andy Barr, he got really upset. He calls me a nativist. He said we need legal immigrants to stay here so they can work jobs for lower wages, taking opportunity away from American workers. You know, I think deporting people who broke our laws is only common sense. But I guess that's controversial to a guy who funded Congress's latest attempt at mass amnesty. I shouldn't be surprised, though. Andy Barr is a fully owned subsidiary of Mitch McConnell, who worked with Democrats to try and pass amnesty, which is an important lesson for anyone voting in this Republican primary. For the first time since I was born, we have a chance to replace Mitch McConnell here in the Commonwealth with someone who's going to support our president in a state he won by 30 points instead of sabotaging him every chance they get. But just because Mitch McConnell's name is not on the ballot doesn't mean his legacy is not on the line. Which brings me to the McConnell boys. If you want to know how Andy Barr or Daniel Cameron are going to act in the U.S. Senate, look no further than their mentor, Mitch McConnell. Both of these guys are very proud to tell you they wouldn't have careers if it weren't for Mitch. Neither of these guys have built anything, done anything impactful, employed anyone, but boy, do they know how to take direction from a decrepit old mob boss. I mean, where would you be without Mitch McConnell? Andy and Daniel, you know, today might be the perfect day to break some real news here. Perhaps you could both show us the seat of your britches so we can finally understand where Mitch McConnell's hand goes. Daniel, I gotta be honest. It's really good to see you doing what you do so well, sitting on the bench and watching the action play out. A few years ago, right here on this stage, Daniel joked that Mitch McConnell was his wife's grandfather. Well, I've got some breaking news for you all. I just received the DNA results, and it turns out Mitch McConnell is not your wife's grandfather. But in fact, Mitch McConnell, Daniel, is your daddy. I don't know if you saw, but President Trump recently commented about what an absolutely stupid, brainless idea cashless bail is. Don't worry, though, Daniel. I'm sure he'll forget all about it, just like you shielded for cashless bail for years. And I'm sure he's going to forget you told the press you couldn't think of a single thing you disagreed with Mitch McConnell. And I'm sure he's going to forget you managed to choke like a dog and lose the general election to Andy Beshear in our Commonwealth in a state that Trump won by 30 points. And then we have Andy Barr. To sum up the internal battle for Andy Barr, I would say this. We need to keep an eye on what disappears first, Andy's support for Mitch or his hairline. I'm just kidding. Actually, what's disappearing faster is his chance of ever becoming a United States Senator. I like to rag on Andy, but I got to give him some credit. He did something very, very smart, setting up his bank account in Kiev, and his campaign treasurer is Vladimir Zelensky. I know, but that's why Mitch McConnell keeps sending him checks. God bless you, and God bless Kentucky.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Jerome Parrish in Fancy Farm, Kentucky, and from our studios in Louisville. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice. Real people, real moments, real coverage continues now.
Glad to have you with us today as we cover Fancy Farm, the political event of the year in Kentucky, and it has not disappointed. I'm in the studio with Bob Scott and Tom Fallbush, and and then we have Andrew Cooperrider on the scene. Andrew, let me go to you first. What was the reaction to the comments that Nate Morris made, particularly about Daniel Cameron? What can you tell us about what happened there? And a lot of this stuff gets sent out in clips on social media, so people don't necessarily see the audience reaction; they just hear the barb. But what do you think is the response, and will be the response to that?
Well, I can tell you today, yesterday, every time that Nate Morris has attacked McConnell, wrapped in McConnell, Cameron, McConnell Barr type conversation, the crowd itself hasn't really been feeling it. I mean, you do have to understand your history of Kentucky, of McConnell's Western Wall strategy, where they did come out to West Kentucky specifically to turn it into a Republican stronghold. And so locally, a lot of the Republican Party, a lot of the Republican elected people aren't going to take kindly to those comments. I can tell you that the feedback I was getting around me was, in general, that Nate Morris's speech was a little bit negative, a little bit darker, not as necessarily jovial. I think he's all week, he's been having a voice issue. He recently had a child last couple of days, I think like within the last week. Yeah. And so I think that's affecting his voice. Yeah, so he just comes off grovelly, angry. We just Cameron over and over was hitting people pretty hard. Right. He himself, because of his tone of voice, the oohs and ahs, that was kind of an ugly joke.
Hey, Andrew,
wasn't per se as relevant.
Hey, Andrew, Barr's speech, I thought, was, as far as TV perception and coverage goes, probably was most well received, it seemed like, today. Andy Barr.
I don't know. I think on the ground, it's hard, right? Because when you're on the ground here, you see that there is a large amount of people wearing Barr shirts, holding Barr signs. But understand that Barr has won a lot of money. I mean, last night, he's rolling around with a U-Haul. He's rolling around with buses. I mean, he is spending some serious money. When you drive into these events, you're passing by 4x8 signs that have been erected within the past few days. He sends out a preteen. They knocked the route, literally the route you drive from the breakfast to here at Fancy Farm. They knocked it and then put up signs along the way of 4x8 signs asking homeowners in order to create the idea that he's very popular. So they've done a lot to curate that. So if I'm looking at everybody else that's not wearing a current party group person shirt, I would say the reaction was better to Cameron than Barr personally. I think Barr spent a long time talking about policy without a lot of jokes, and it lost some people in the beginning.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew Cooper. Great job today. One line that Andy Barr had was that he's looking forward to another Andy beating Danny again in the next election. But thank you, Andrew. Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, as we wrap this up today, I think it's what we expected. We heard Mitch McConnell trying to defend his legacy. We heard the Barr and Cameron kind of maybe splitting that vote. We heard Nate Morris come in as an outsider. It's pretty much what we expected.
Yeah, I was, at the end of this, I still don't think there's a front runner. I mean, we all came into this thinking that really Morris is probably the front runner because of the national support from the MAGA crowd. But after listening to this, I'm not getting a front runner feel, from anybody right now. And actually, it was a shame because Morris could have closed us. I mean, I think he could have came in and they really knocked it out of the park and closed the deal.
Opportunity,
and he hadn't done it yet. And so I don't know who I would vote for at this point. And because each of them had great points, I still have concerns about Morris. And but
Bob
anyway,
Scott.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's still any man's race right now. It's going to be interesting to see over the next several months what happens with regard. And Andrew was talking about the money that's been poured into certainly Barr's campaign and what he saw on the way down there. I'll just say this, and I said it to you guys off camera. To me, the one that and it was a bit on the heavy side, the attack. I think that basically Morris was the one that was, I would say, closer to being Trump.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, as far as the attack.
Yeah, exactly right.
I think the content, yes, but the tone, as we talked about earlier, remains to be seen. I think Barr's going to be a formidable opponent, guys.
Absolutely.
I think Daniel Cameron will be.
That's right.
And the fact is, you've seen all of this right here today on Kentucky's Voice. How exciting has this been? We've got you, which I think is great, and we'll get a chance to watch it again and do some more analysis, hopefully. Guys, it's been really great. This time has gone by tremendously fast.
Thanks for joining us, folks.
And thanks for joining us.
Appreciate y'all.
And stay with us here and be with us here on Kentucky's Voice.
We appreciate
Monday
your support.
through Friday, 11 o'clock each weekday. We hope you'll join us. God bless everyone. Have a great weekend.
And support Kentucky's Voice. Support it.
That wraps up our live coverage of the 2025 Fancy Farm Political Rally, brought to you by Kentucky's Voice. To learn more, support our mission, or get involved in the fight for truth in the Commonwealth, visit kyvoice.org. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's Voice.